Good.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Miss Canada Glow Productions Facebook Live page. My name is Maya Santa Ana Pilar, and you are watching us live on our Miss Canada Glow Productions Facebook channel. It's been a while since I haven't done this. So I am joined by our MCGP Queens and also a special guest. And tonight's topic is so important because it's something that we should discuss on because it's been happening since COVID happened, and it's very important to know that everybody's affected by systematic racism. So I'm going to introduce to you our girls of MCGP. And Carrissa, I hope you are online because your camera is connected because she's our special guest. So Carrissa, please turn on your camera and your microphone. So I have first and foremost Alexa Gabriel, our Miss Teen Canada Petite 2019-2020. Hi, Alexa.
Hi, Tita.
And I have Vanya Shastri, our Miss Canada Petite 2019-2020.
Hi, Maya.
And we have Arshdeep Purba, who's our Miss Canada Globe 2019-2020.
Hello.
And our special guest, Carrissa, please turn on your mic, your audio. Carrissa Auger, or Carrissa Lowhorn, when she was still single. And she was our Canadian Scholarship Ambassador 2011-2012. And she represented Canada at the Miss Tourism Planet, Greece in 2012. Then she represented United States of America at the Miss Globe 2013 pageant. And then she became our legacy queen. And then she goes more. We will talk about her. But ladies, how are you guys doing? Starting with Alexa, how are you?
Good, Tita. How are you?
If you can come close to the microphone so that I can hear you better, okay?
Yeah, sure. The chair won't move. I'll move manually. I'm doing good, Tita. How are you?
I'm good. So life in Calgary is good?
Life in Calgary is good. How's it like in Toronto?
Very beautiful weather.
That's good.
And Vanya, how are things there?
BC's doing really good. The weather's been amazing, and I think people have done well under the circumstances with all the restrictions, but the beaches are opening back up, so it's starting to get crowded again.
Oh, that's nice. I hope everyone's practicing social distancing.
Yeah, 100%.
We are not free of COVID yet.
No.
So, okay, so Arshdeep, is Arshdeep there? Okay. Arshdeep, please remove, okay. So how are things in Vancouver? Because you just moved back from Alberta.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. I'm excited because this is where like my workplace, my creative place is. It's like my second home. So I'm happy to be back here. It's after 3 months, a long, long time.
That's good. So Carrissa, how are things in Calgary?
Pretty good so far. We're just kind of practicing social distancing and keeping my circle small with just family and friends.
Okay, so ladies, let's talk about the topic. But first and foremost, Carrissa, you are an indigenous woman. So you are actually, you are Cree. You are Cree, right?
No, Blackfoot.
Blackfoot. Okay, so, but I know Blackfoot and Cree are like kind of like.
Oh, my husband's Cree.
Well, but I mean, everybody's First Nations. That's the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us your life being being an indigenous woman, and because it's been going on, systematic racism has been going on for a long time, and it's not only about like minority or different kind of like national minorities, but being a First Nation, you are the first people in our land. And tell us about your life as an Indigenous woman.
Well, I grew up on one of the second largest reserves in Canada, and I have never went to a Native school, but I've had a lot of I've kind of went in around the surrounding communities. I have experienced systematic racism within school, but thankfully later on in life I haven't really experienced too much racism throughout my life. I think a lot of times people think that I'm not Native based on because I'm successful, or I just look different, or they just have this image of how Native should look. Because I've had people like say, "Oh, don't Natives drink a lot," and I've had comments like that. But I've had a lot of family and friends be affected by racism, but nothing too direct where it has really impacted my life to the point where I'm not proud. I'm very proud to say I'm an Indigenous woman, and but yeah, I've done the pageants, and I've been given the opportunity to showcase my culture and who I am as a First Nation woman, and just represent other First Nations and kind of open the doors for other First Nations women who are wanting to do this kind of pageantry. And I think I'm seeing it more and more, where there's a lot of younger Indigenous women who are following that route. The reason why I got into pageantry was because I heard of the scholarship. I was always big on education. And thankfully I won that part, and it just kind of helped me advocate for, I gave talks to different schools, and from there that just kind of confirmed my passion for being in education. I got my first degree when I was participating in all these pageants. So when I first started, I was working, I was going to school, and I was also doing a lot of fundraising for my pageantry. For a lot of my international trips, there are a lot of preparation. And
I remember because when you competed for Miss, she's like from one pageant, because we sent her to Greece, and then she's like already, she traveled at Miss Globe with a backpack. But just to let everybody know, Carrissa completed her contract with MCGP. And that's the reason why she got her scholarship. And she got her scholarship from MCGP. She got all the prizes that she was promised to because she completed her contract. And you know, Carrissa, about our mission about the Sisterhood Mentorship Program, where you have to mentor 5 girls, right? And she did 2 pageants with MCGP. So she basically did that and completed her requirements. And from there, you got her scholarship. And I just wanted to ask, how did the scholarship help you? The scholarship that you received from MCGP?
Well, being a student at the time, that was really helpful. Financially.
You received a $5,000 scholarship, right? So,
yeah.
Plus
and then
the commissions.
A lot of things too is I have a big list of volunteer work that I have used for my resume. Like my resume was full every year, like multiple events that I've attended. That really looks good on your resume. It's good to see that it's consistent throughout the years, and there's no gaps, because with Miss Canada Globe you are required to attend a lot of charity events and to take pictures and to promote it. but yeah, so I've always been really busy while doing these pageants, but I was able to do it. I was always working, school, and these pageants, and then everything.
You were so active. You
Yeah.
were so active during your time. And not only that, you've completed 3 degrees.
Yeah.
So
then I went on to complete my master's in education. Then I went back and did my BEd. And I'm now a teacher. I got hired to work on the second largest reserve in Canada, where I'll be working with other Indigenous students directly. I'm not too sure what grade I'm going to be teaching, but I'll be working as a teacher and hopefully one day become a leader. I could be a leader in education one day once I get the experience. But a lot of it was pageantry really helped me with my interpersonal skills. It's helped me with public speaking and interviewing. Like, they teach you how to talk and how to enter a room and have presence, and it just taught me so much about myself and kind of helped me with my confidence levels and being confident in everything that I do.
I hear a Dr. Carrissa Auger in the future.
Yeah, that's what my husband. Yeah, I think I will do it, but right now I'm just kind of giving myself a break because I've been going nonstop. Within the past 4 years, I've had 2 children. I did 1 pageant, and I completed 2 degrees in the span of 4 years. So I was just thinking, like, in our culture, everything works in pairs. So I was kind of just relating that back to my teachings, and I was like, wow, I've accomplished a lot of things in the span of 4 years, and this is going into my next chapter where I'll be teaching and actually putting all my skills, everything that I've learned into school, into practice.
And that's the reason why I'm so proud of you, Carrissa, because the first time I met Carrissa in the pageant, she was very shy. And the word, it's so limited. The word that comes out of her mouth was so limited. And look at her now. She can eat the microphone. That's what pageant does to a girl. And I mean, Alexa, Vanya, and Arsh, because you are part of this discussion, I want you to learn something from what Carrissa does. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask her, because she is also part of the sisterhood of MCGP. And these are our 3 reigning queens who have done so good so far in their reign. And I want them to look up to you of what a legacy queen, because you are an MCGP legacy queen. You've been granted that honor when?
2014.
Did you still keep the crown? Did you keep the crown safe? The one that I designed? I designed their legacy crowns.
I think I still have the sash, like all my sashes. I actually just want to get them organized and put together. One of my favorite titles that I've won. It's so funny because I went to Greece and then I went to Albania. I won the 2 same awards when I was there, which was Miss Cosmopolitan, which is someone at ease with many different cultures, which I'm really proud of because my first degree is in international indigenous studies, so that focuses on all the indigenous cultures across the country. So the directors and everybody that gave me that award, I feel like they just seen that I was able to connect with all of the other people, like all of my other pageant contestants. Like, for example, just because China couldn't speak English, Miss Taiwan was there to interpret that, or because they had the same dialect, they could understand, and she'd be talking to me, like she'd be so interested in where I came from, and she'd be asking me questions. But whereas some other girls wouldn't necessarily take that step, well, they think, oh, well, she doesn't speak English, so I shouldn't really talk to her. But I used to try and communicate with all the other girls that from a different language in other ways, like sign language, or like trying to explain. There was usually interpreters, someone with them who spoke English, because English is an international language. So those 2 awards were really, it was just kind of weird because when I was in Albania, they called me for the same award that I won in Greece. like Miss Cosmopolitan, and I was like, wow, that must be something, one of my characteristics that stand out the most. Maybe because being from a multicultural country, that's just something that I'm used to, I guess. Yeah. So,
and again, being Miss Cosmopolitan, it requires a personality, you know, like a personality that is very open to that kind of thing where you really have to be out there and outspoken and be ready to be out there as a friendly person. So Alexa, we lost Arshdeep. I hope Arshdeep goes back. Do you have any questions so far to Carrissa?
I don't have any questions yet, but if I do, I'll ask.
Okay, Vanya, I've seen your post lately in regards to systematic racism. So would you like to ask something that to Carrissa? Because I've seen you talking about it a lot on your Facebook page.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to, I know you touched on this a little bit before, but did you ever feel held back because of where you came from, or the kind of expectations or the stereotypes that were set to your background? Like you said, people assume, you know, natives are always drunk or they're not hardworking.
no, because I came from a very strong line of people in my life, especially my grandmother, who was only in residential for 3 years, which it didn't really affect her, whereas it would have affected someone who was in residential school for like 10 years. So I feel like that just made me stronger, and because I know who I am, identity is something that's really big for me. Well, for anybody, if you know who you are and where you come from and where your ancestors been, and they had a tough upbringing, that just gives me much more strength. And especially in my culture, I have a lot of I grounded myself in my culture to the point where I'm not very scared of the things that just kind of getting over my fears and being confident, because I think that pretty much identity has played a huge role in my life. Knowing where I come from, but people that don't know who they are and where they come from, they can tend to be a little bit lost and a little bit more confident in themselves, and that's why it's really important that you get to know who you are and you know your history.
I think she's like breaking up. Carrissa, you're there?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Arshdeep, do you have any questions? Sorry, Arshdeep, do you have?
I was
Go ahead.
say
Go
that,
ahead.
I'm still very connected to my community. I'm always there with my family, so I do know the struggles that they go. Like I know I've seen it a lot on my Facebook, where there's a lot of my friends and family that have experienced racism. Like right now, we have a lot of cases of COVID on our reserve, and it's getting to the point where there's some local businesses are they're not allowing some First Nations in there because they think that because they have that stigmatism that it's their fault that they got discriminated. It can happen to anybody, and it's not like it's not something that you can predict or prevent. It just happens. I've had a lot of family and friends that have been affected by it. So I think we just need to, like Henshaw, I think she just, Dr. Henshaw, she talked about it and talked about how it's not anybody's fault that this is happening. Like this is happening to everybody in a different way. So, yeah.
Arshdeep, do you have any questions for Carrissa?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I just want to know your opinion and your perspective, but do you feel like there's like a lack of education on everything that's happened in the Indigenous community and what happens even till this day?
Yeah, because a lot of what happened to Indigenous peoples in residential schools is really downplayed. especially within the education system. They don't talk about the brutalities that actually happened. So a lot of it's downplayed with the stories that have happened. And I think these stories are age appropriate as well. You have to, when you're as an educator, you have to set it an age and appropriate content. So that could be tricky. So I think now with the Truth and Reconciliation, the TRC, they're trying to bring more of the history into the schools, because I do know that a lot of people, like a lot of non-Indigenous people, do not know about the histories of residential school, and a lot of times I find myself educating others on it.
And that's really sad because, you know, I know for a fact that a lot of people, and I don't want to be, I'm not saying any racist things in here, but if someone wants to correct me, please do so. The Indigenous children, when they enter the Indigenous school or the residential school, it's based on what the white men, they call white men, settlers, of what kind of education they want, on the views of the white or Caucasian people. And I feel that is sad because that is why a lot of the Indigenous kids are struggling, because they are actually kind of like losing their culture. Am I correct, Carrissa? Because I saw this on a documentary series called My America by Lisa Ling, and it taught me a lot. So I don't know, is that the situation that's been happening?
Well, the effects of it, like myself, because the language has been lost, and like my grandmother speaks it still. She teaches it at the U of C actually, and a lot of people, like the ones that did know how to speak Blackfoot, they didn't really teach it to their kids, which is our generation, because they were scared. They wanted them to learn English, and they didn't want them to have such a hard life. Knowing, and because they were always feared into, like in residential school, they were taught not to speak their language and their culture. I think myself, I don't speak my language, but my grandmother does, and I think that's where it has been lost. Because a lot of people my age don't know the language. In my
But you can dance. You can dance your culture. I see most.
We know our culture, through sun dances and ceremonies. We still do have a lot of that. We're trying to revive a lot of the language and the culture through education now. Like the school that I'm working in, I know for a fact that they speak the prayer. It's just getting the foundation of it going. That we're trying to revive it through. There's apps like through iTunes that you can get to teach children how to speak the language and learn little different things about the culture. There's societies that we have every year, ceremonies that we have every year that still go on to this day, that help people, that anybody that's interested, they can, I don't know if they're kind of like societies, but there's different ways to go in about it. But yeah, I would say it definitely has an impact on language and culture.
And just to get everybody know, sorry for cutting you off because I don't want to lose that train of thought. A lot of the people, Indigenous community, have a high sickness of diabetes and high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Because why? Because the white men gives them all these processed food for them to have, and they want them to remove the skills of hunting, which gives them natural foods. Not if you've seen the diet of the Indigenous people before, it's so healthy. Everything's natural because they believe in the nature. They are entwined with the nature. So they hunt so they can have fresh food and the actual leather they use it for their clothes, and they believe in like natural organic vegetables and stuff like that. And that is the culture that I believe should go, like, that they should maintain. But because of the the the, the Caucasian government tries to remove that away from them, and that's why a lot of them are dying of heart disease, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So
Yeah, I was gonna say that like there's certain things that we like. For example, like beef isn't natural to Canada. Pig, well, I don't know. Like there's just different foods. It's just a different diet that we used to have, and a lot of the foods now have a lot of GMOs and steroids, and I think that's affecting everybody in general. Like even all of the wheats and like the stuff that they're putting in bread is making everyone get sick from like celiac disease, and like I think it's just affecting Canadians as a whole. But another thing too is water. First Nations Reserve don't have the best quality of water. That's just something that isn't a priority for Canada, I guess. But a lot of these First Nations people, they don't have good drinking water, and I think that too plays a big contribution to
and
health.
I want all our queens to be aware of this, because I want them to use this as their platform. Hopefully, ladies, you're learning something from what Carissa's describing, because right now you are the reigning queens, and you have that power to actually bring education to all people of Canada. And I'm so proud of Carrissa talking about this, because as I mentioned earlier, before we did this live interview, we have a current person in the roster who is experiencing depression because of the life in the residence. She's experiencing, because people in her community are experiencing substance abuse and alcoholism, and no matter how she tries to get out of that, it just feels like there's nowhere to go. And I've known that from a lot of our indigenous pageant sisters, because the opportunity has been taken away from them, and they're basically are like forced to be in the residential area where they cannot. There's not a lot of jobs. There's not a lot of community support, and the government thinks that, okay, yeah, we're gonna give them food, we're gonna give them this financial support, but that's not enough. They need programs to build and show more of their culture, so that the indigenous people can grow. And I'm so proud of Carrissa, because she went out of the residential area to actually get herself out there and see the world. And that's what I want for all indigenous girls to experience, because I know I've met a lot of indigenous girls who've been in our pageant, and once they experience competing nationally and then competing internationally, they tend to understand more about what it is to represent Canada. And they tend to understand more about living and meeting other people and being an actual ambassador, promoting the actual culture of Canada, which is indigenous, right? So I am always an advocate for Aboriginal women, because all the things that they're experiencing, such as younger girls being abused, sexually abused, physically abused by men because of alcohol abuse and substance abuse. They get depressed and then they end up being young moms. Then even that, they get into depression and then it leads to suicidal moments. I don't know, Carrissa, am I saying things right about this? I know for a fact, and I'm experiencing it right now, to some of our indigenous girls.
Yeah, I think that being living on reserve
You're cracking.
have, because there's not versus jobs or support, family that was support. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So family plays a big role in someone's success. A lot of times, like, I'm lucky that I came family. Like, I don't drink. My husband, we just practice living a healthy lifestyle. My family is very supportive of me, my husband, and but I could see that happening if you live on a reserve. That support, there's a lot of things that are going on right now. There's a lot of drug abuse right now. Just within the last few years, our reserve has gone, like, we've had opioid crisis. Now with this pandemic, a lot of First Nations people don't know how to deal with this. It's affecting a lot of people's mental health. And you're seeing a lot of different, my husband works fire and EMS on my reserve in Siksika, and there's a lot of the calls are drug related. Or when I was living on the reserve, I would consider it not as bad. There was hardly anybody that really did drugs. It was more just alcohol related. But yeah, like, a lot of it stems from residential school, effects of residential school, and it just kind of keeps going and going until someone in the family stops the cycle, like I have with my children. I try to live I live a very clean lifestyle. I don't drink, I don't smoke, not because I have children now and I need a role model to look up to. But with myself, like, I have a lot of cousins who look up to me, and I try my best to help them and guide them along their ways. And I'm always sometimes the person to come to when things go wrong. And I also do own a lash business on this as well. So I have a lot of I'm a little small business owner, and I do a lot of different just talking with a lot of my clients are First Nations. So I have a lot of I have a lot of friends and family. Just like, even with that, that's like they support me in everything that I do. They trust me, and yeah, I think it could be hard if you don't have that support. And so I'm always helpful, like with the girl that Mayas is talking about. I'm open to guiding her and just talking from experience. I think it always helps when you're talking to another First Nations who's gone through it, and I think other First Nations feel comfortable with other First Nations. And just opening up that.
And I really appreciate that, Carrissa, because I know what you've been through, and I know all your achievements. And just by listening to you right now, just makes me cry, because I am so proud of the woman you've become. So, and I'm so proud of you, and I just pray that the Lord will use you more for all your talents and be a blessing for others. And you are still a blessing for others. And I'm just so proud of the woman that you have become. So, Carrissa, again, for taking this opportunity to mentor our one of our reigning girls means a lot, so much. And I'm going to talk about systematic racism by myself and to all these queens, because we are not Caucasian. Alexa is actually half Filipina, half Canadian. Vanya, well, we're all Canadians, but like of Caucasian background. Vanya is actually Indian descent, and Arshdeep is also East Indian descent. I am half Filipina, half Italian, and I experience racism all the time. Why? Because I am a minority leading a Canadian pageant organization. And I've experienced racism from some of our parents, of our contestants, especially from some areas that they don't have a lot of multicultural identity. And I can name them from Newfoundland. I can name also from some parts of Alberta, some parts of Saskatchewan, where we get calls. We get even calls of someone called my staff a chink from one of the moms. And mostly they would say, oh, I am a daughter of a farmer. One mom, Caucasian, said to one of my staff, I am a daughter of a white farmer, and you will listen to what I say, and you will do as what I say. And that was one of the statements that was said. One of the, not statements, but actual saying that she said to one of our staff. I, for a fact, some of my fellow pageant directors that are in competition with me have said nasty words about me being a minority, and puts confusion to other pageant contestants, saying that you might not want to trust a minority holding a Canadian organization, because she will not give a fair treatment to us Caucasians. So why do people need to make that kind of statement and put color segregation to everybody? Because I lived in a moment, I was born here in Canada, raised, seeing no color. But since I became part of the pageant industry, that's what people had instilled in my mind and in my heart, that I am different because of the color of my skin and because of my ethnicity. Arshdeep, being an Indian Canadian, how do you feel?
It's kind of tough because I kind of feel like in the middle of both worlds. I don't really identify in one world itself. And I think winning this title kind of brought a lot of racism as well. It's like, how can an Indian be Miss Canada Globe? And I'm like, I was born in Canada. But it's kind of put me in a spot where it's like, you have to just empower yourself and be proud of who you are and where your roots come from, because your roots are literally your story in your everyday life, and just to own it and to make your people proud and to always be a good role model. Because I know a lot of cultures and a lot of racism stems from these stereotypes that media puts out there. And I think if you can be a good role model and show to the world you're just a human, and what you stand for is all your right values and beliefs, I think you can change the world just by doing that.
Okay, so like, how do you feel that some people might not be accepting of you being a Miss Canada Globe because of you being East Indian descent, but you were born here, but people don't like the fact that you are not the typical Canadian girl?
Well, for me, it's like I've dealt with a lot of trying to fit in, trying to change who I am so I can belong. Because first of all, I'm Indian, and then second of all, my family's Christian. So it's always like that been put into smaller groups. But with this now, I'm finally at a point in my life where I'm like, I'm not gonna change for anyone. I think some people are just not educated on, like, a lot of people are not educated on indigenous community. A lot of people are not educated on our history of us being minorities in Canada. So I'm like, hopefully one day actions speak louder than words. If I can just show them and educate them, it'll be better. But if people are going to be people and we can't force someone to change, but we can like guide them, you know what I'm saying? So like, I'm hoping that one day I'm able to educate people on being a minority in Canada and what it means and what our stories are. And with the whole Black Lives Matter movement, I think that's the light is really being shed on being a minority in Canada and North America.
And you actually participated in one of the protests.
Yes.
How did that? Tell us, how did that go?
It went very well. Like, people see, like, on news, they show like this happened at a protest, this happened at a protest, but they never show the love and they don't show the community coming together. So I was in Calgary when it happened, and it was just such a loving and such an open environment where people were telling their stories. And I think it gives you like this empathy for other people's stories and being like, oh my God, she went through exactly what I went through like 3 years ago. We are literally on the same path, but just because media putting different colors and being afraid of different colors, that we separate ourselves from people.
Okay, now Vanya, tell us about, how do you feel being an East Indian descent, and you were born in Canada as well?
Mm-hmm.
But
So
yes.
for me personally, I grew up with the privilege of never facing racism, and that was surprising because I grew up in a mostly Caucasian neighborhood. All of my friends, my family, people I had relationships were, everyone was white, and being the only person of color, you would expect that I'd face more discrimination. But thankfully, I got support from my teachers, my friends, and everyone around me growing up. So when this movement started coming out in the light, like Black Lives Matter, and more about Indigenous women going missing, I felt like it was my job to speak out, because just because I have the privilege of not being targeted so far in my life doesn't mean I shouldn't speak up for my South Asian brothers and sisters or my Indigenous brothers and sisters. Same goes for the Black community. But I've had the fortune that ever since my win, nobody has said anything to me like, how can you be a Canadian queen? You're not really Canadian.
Okay. So Alexa, tell us about, and especially with you, not only being like half Filipina, but also living in an autistic spectrum. Tell us about your experience in that kind of like the discrimination aspect.
Well, I am half Filipina and also half German, but I was born in Canada. Being in the autism spectrum, there was no racism, and I'm very thankful that I didn't have to go through that, but I did have to go through a lot of ignorant people, and I can't change the way people think if they don't want to change, but it really hurts because I want them to see what I'm going through, but at the same time, they just don't understand, and I think that's just a lack of understanding. And now with everything going on with the different races in the world going through racism and discrimination, I feel that it's very important to shed light on the situation and help those in need and give them support.
Thank you so much, Alexa. So Carrissa, I just wanted you to ask you, what can you tell girls who are, actually, she just left us. So I was, maybe she's like, hi, Carrissa, sorry. Thank you very much for coming back. So what can you tell the girls who are Indigenous, who are actually, feels like they're stuck in their situation right now, and it feels like they don't have hope. I will always say, for me, from my own point of view as well, I just want to say to all Indigenous women, to all Indigenous family out there, that I will always have and continue my work to be an advocate for Indigenous people, Indigenous young girls and women. And I know I'm not Indigenous, but I am also a minority, and I believe that everyone should be equal. And to all Indigenous girls out there, like, I'd like to ask you, Carrissa, what would be your message to these girls?
I would say just to keep rooted in your culture and learning your language, and that will give you strength in who you are. Carry out anything that they're able to do with confidence and strength that will help them along the way, and just being true to yourself and just living a clean, healthy lifestyle. I think that's and asking Creator to always guide you along the way in everything that you do, to direct you, because you will end up where you're meant to be.
But tell all the Indigenous girls out there who are thinking of entering pageantry, what has pageantry meant to you, especially having the experience of going internationals?
Yeah, well, pageant teaches you to be, you pretty much become a very well-rounded person. You will become skilled in a lot of areas in your life. You will discover the things that you thought you could never do in your life. It teaches you to have thick skin, because people are always judging you, and no matter what, it kind of just teaches you not to take everything to heart, because when someone's having a bad day and treating someone else poorly, it doesn't reflect who you are, and as a person, it reflects their how it reflects them as a person.
Thank you. Arshdeep, any words to all Indigenous girls out there, Indigenous women?
Yeah, I think it's so important to shed light and educate, because a lot of people are just live by stereotypes, and you just owning who you are and just being so proud of your culture makes us curious about what is this about, like tell us more, and like just spreading love and passion and just owning it, because you have a story to tell and your story is so important.
Thank you. Vanya, what is your message to all Indigenous girls out there?
I'm not Indigenous, but I'm a minority woman myself, and I hear you, I stand with you, and your stories are absolutely valid, and you've always got a friend in me.
Thank you. Alexa?
I just wanted to say to all of the Indigenous girls and women out there, and to all Indigenous people, I know that racism and discrimination is something you are dealing with, especially right now, but we are all human, and we all have blood in our veins. And I know that, sorry, and you are beautiful, and you don't be ashamed for who you are.
Thank you. And this is my message to all the Indigenous girls out there. I know how you feel being in a situation where you think that there's no hope, that you are stuck in an area where this is who you're going to be and where you're going to be. But you don't have to feel that way, because you can always spread your wings and go out of your area, go out of your residence, so that you can see the world. Because with that experience, going out of your comfort zone and learning the world, you are able to create a better future for you and your community. You'll be able to set an example to all the other Indigenous girls out there to dream, to make something of themselves. And the perfect example of that is Carrissa Auger, Ashley Culling Bull, and there are more Indigenous women who are actually in pageants that that actually excelled. Jolene Howe, who was our first Canadian Miss Teen Petite World, and she's also first Indigenous woman who was crowned Miss Teen Petite World. So there is a dream. There is something out there that you can pursue. There's something out there that you could see the world, for you to learn and for you to set up an example for your future generations. And I just have to say that I am there to show you that. And all these queens out there, including Carrissa, will be there to show you that and be able to mentor you that there's life outside the residence. There's a better life to educate yourself and get yourself to be a better person. You don't have to be stuck in that bubble where people are suffering from substance abuse or alcohol abuse. Because it hurts me. It hurts to see an Indigenous woman or Indigenous young girl, or even Indigenous young people in general, in the streets of Toronto, lying down on the ground because they're so high on crystal meth, they're high on drugs, and they're drunk, and begging people for money when you have rights to make yourself a better person. You have rights to get free education, free university education. You have more rights because of the fact that you are part of the generation that founded this country. So use that right, everybody. To all Indigenous people, use your right, use your privilege of being an Indigenous. Go to school, learn the importance of being educated, because that can get you a better life. Carrissa Auger has 3 degrees and is a teacher. And I'm just so proud of what she has become. And I want to have everybody, all the Indigenous people, who have the same opportunity and use that opportunity so that you can get your future generations to have a better life, that you don't have to be stuck in a residential area where there's nothing to look forward to. And that's why people get depressed. You can be a hero for your future generations. So take advantage of that. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional, but it does hurt me that people who founded this country are not getting what they deserve. And when I see Caucasian people disrespecting them and using force on them, like what happened to the chief in Alberta, they don't deserve that, because they are the founders of this country. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have the country that we call and love Canada, that we love so much and enjoy all the benefits of being a democratic and free people, in expense of their own lives and their own culture, and losing their own personality and culture and benefits of being a true Canadian. And I just want to say this to everybody. I will always stand up for the rights of Indigenous people because they deserve it. And no one has the right to take all these rights away from them, including the police, including the government, and including big corporations who are abusing all the minority, not only Indigenous people, but minority people. Because these minority people work 10 times harder than a Caucasian person. For what? To improve the economy of our country. And our economy is running on the efforts, the blood and sweat of all the minority people. So these minority people should be respected, should be given what they deserve for putting blood, sweat, and tears so that we can enjoy the country that we have called Canada. And I just want to say, Carrissa, thank you so much for being our inspiration. And I ask you to continue to inspire others. I'm sorry, I'm so emotional, and I kept this quiet for so long because I know I might hurt, or I might how can I say that? Some people might not like,
sensitive subject.
Might not want to like what they hear from me, but this is reality. And Canada is made up of all cultures, and it is the immigrant nation. So Carrissa, first and foremost, again, us Canadians would like to thank you and all your tribes and all your generations of people. Because if it wasn't for you and your ancestry and all the people in your generation and your past generation, we wouldn't be enjoying this land, what we call Canada right now. So thank you once again.
Yeah, thank you for the acknowledgement, and thank you for having me and the advocating you do for First Nations girls. That's really amazing. And yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me to share my story and to showcase my culture across the world. And for supporting me along the way. And it was really nice hearing from you. We haven't kept in contact because we've been busy, but I've been seeing a lot of the wonderful work you have been doing on Facebook and through my pageant sisters. And thank you.
And remember, Carrissa, you are one of the people that made what MCGP is all about. So you're part of this tradition. I just wanted you to know that. And again, thank you again for taking the responsibility of being a mentor for this girl and also for all other Indigenous girls, because I know how they feel being comfortable with someone of their own. So I would really appreciate that, Carrissa. Arshdeep, Vanya, Alexa, thank you for being with us and being part of this discussion. And this discussion is not only about for Carrissa, but it's about you, Arshdeep, you, Vanya, you, Alexa, and it's also for me, because we are all what Canada is all about. So please remember that we are what Canada is. We are the nation that makes this great nation of Canada all about, and something that people look after and are jealous of, because we are the people of Canada. So thank you again for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carrissa.
Right.
Thank you, Carrissa.
And to all, thank you, Carrissa. And thank you, Vanya. Thank you, Arshdeep. And I hope that Carrissa will inspire you, all you girls, and all the national queens of MCGP, because Carissa's story is not only a story for herself, but a success story of MCGP, and it's a success story of what a Canadian woman is all about. So thank you, ladies. I love you all. And to
Love you
all
too,
our
Maya.
viewers
Thank
today,
you.
thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself a wonderful evening. And again, Miss Canada Glow Productions, a symbol of true Canadian beauty, your pageant with a heart. Thank you.